Hi, welcome to Fiber Chats. My name is Irina. I'm the host here. My guests today are people who I met at H&H Americas, and that was my first time coming to this trade show. So I'm really interested to learn behind the scenes. So today I have Darrin and Nadine Schwartz. Welcome to my channel.
Thank you for having us on today. We're glad to be here.
Thank you.
Well, again, because it was my first show, I don't have much to compare it with. I have to start with saying I had the best of time at the show throughout all 4 days. I've met incredible amount of people, an incredible variety of people from all different kinds of parts of the industry. There were some quilters there were yarn stores, there were people selling old needles and scissors, and there were amazing classes, amazing presentations. I actually enjoyed every part of it, including that taco booth was incredible, best tacos ever. How much before the show starts? When does it start, all the preparation, and how many people are involved in putting the show together?
Depends on how you want to count. So when you're talking about preparation for the show, I would say there's kind of two time frames for it, right? Like we're already working on the 2024 show. There's a team of, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5, 6 of us that are relatively full-time, just working on the show, anything from operations to sales, public relations, social media, marketing, international outreach. So there's that group that's here at Colomesa that's doing that. But another part you would look at is saying the physical event itself, we start physically loading in our stuff on Saturday before all of you arrive. The exhibitors pretty much start on that Monday. So the exhibitors do everything you see in those booths in 48 hours.
Right.
And then the other hard part when you're starting to count, right? The building that you're in, the people that lay the carpet and put up the pipe and drape and hang the things from the ceiling, I don't even know how many staff they have. I'm going to go with at least 50 plus individuals that do that and move the computers and move the counters. And they're actually starting, maybe 4 or 5 days in front of us. They're already hanging some of those signs, doing what they call marking the floor, like laying out. Imagine just drawing out where every booth is going to go with a piece of chalk on that floor and then building it up from scratch and then taking it all down.
Well, before that map can be charted, you have to find those people, right, who are going to be part of that exhibit. Was that more difficult or easier this year in comparison to last year for you?
Well, the show grew, I think it was technically 33%, but we'll be pessimistic and call it 30%. So in the sense that we grew the show, we'll have to lie and say it was easy, but it's never easy. One of the nice things about the H&H family of shows is that we're building off of a family event, right? We've been known for 20, 30 years as H&H Cologne. It's known around the world as the global leading event for the handicrafts industries and for soft crafts materials. And so we're the little sister that came to America last year and introduced that brand and that concept to the American market. So, and that's one of the kind of unique things in what we're doing. We're only 2 years old. So last year, we're a new brand, we're a new format, we're a new event. If you know us in Cologne, great, you've been there, you kind of have some trust. But for many North American companies, it's still a new experience for them, let alone the products that we're bringing together is very different. And now we finally had our second birthday, right? So some people, maybe you don't want to spend marketing money on a first-time opportunity. You're going to walk it first, then spend the money. So there's this kind of natural progression waiting for us to kind of grow up and kind of grow into our big sister's shoes.
Well, when I was talking to people who were at Cologne for a number of years, and I was asking them, well, how is it different? The first thing was, it's so much bigger. Are you concerned with the growth here? Are you concerned that one day it's going to turn into this monstrosity that you can't manage?
It would be a nice problem to have, right? It's kind of like you look at that big house in the corner, you're like, oh, that looks like a beautiful house. I would love to live in that house. And then you say, you got to clean that house. Maybe I want the small apartment in the city. We'll get there. I mean, we're only 2 years old, and we'll have those conversations. But it's relatively different platforms and different uses for the global markets. Keeping in mind that the show in Cologne is a global event with, off the top of my head, it's 80 different nations in attendance with This past year was 12,000. Pre-pandemic was over 16,000 individuals. We're the baby sister right at this point, right? We had 40 nations of attendance with 2,500 people. We have a long way to go before we get there, and how the go-to market strategy is. And some of those brands, Cologne is their global annual release of what they're doing for the year. So they put a certain amount of marketing, a certain amount of effort, a certain amount of intensity, where then by the time you come to the timing of our show, it's more of a North American presence. Granted, we're a very large market. We have lots of retailers here. It's a different scale, but it's just kind of the timing of the space. If you ask me, yes, I want to be bigger than Cologne. If you ask our sister company in Cologne, nope, they want us to stay the little sister. I mean, Cologne Messe, we do shows, about 70 to 80 of them a year in, three different continents, probably about 8 different countries. So big events, global events, it's what we do for a living.
What I found very interesting coming to the H&H, and again, I didn't know what to expect, was how useful it was for me personally, because I came there as the VIP influencer, and I don't know if I considered myself an influencer up until that moment, but that's how I got invited to the show. And I've met so many people. I've met so many connections have been made during the show, during the VIP influencer event, that I'm still booking my interviews as a result of that show. Do you get that feedback a lot about, like, what's the role of the social media? What's the role of influencers? How do you see it, and how important it is for the show?
Speaking to like people like yourself or to this audience, right? Like whether you like the term influencer, maybe some people like the term content creator. It's actually very interesting to see how you all self-designated, because you kind of say, some people said, I'm not a creator, I'm not an influencer, I'm a designer. Okay, little bit. Are they also a content creator? Yeah, they create design. They do have a very avid social media following. They put their content up on social media, and people love it, fall in love with their designs. So it's kind of interesting to first see how this kind of group of people self-designate, or some people call themselves press. Yeah. Right? Like, so wait a minute. And we kind of look at it as, this is modern form press and media. Because when you look at the landscape of where businesses are getting informed, consumers are getting informed, the next generation of users are getting informed, we're a social media first content consumption world that we live in. Particularly in this softcraft world, when you look at publications, I'm not aware of any business publication that's left for the yarn side of the industry. On the general art industry, yep, there's a couple of publications that play in that space on a B2B scale. When you're looking in the quilting and sewing, again, there's very limited options from B2B. Needlepoint's got one publication. So there's very limited content opportunities in a business-to-business environment. They're consumer publications. But when you start looking at their actual reach to, as I have your page up here with 22,000 followers on Instagram, that's huge. Right. And that influence, so a manufacturer having the chance to speak to someone like you, and maybe you like this product, and whether it's you like it, so you're going to do something on it, or there becomes a advertising relationship deal, some kind of brand endorsement deal that's now being fostered. Your 22,000 followers, if you get 1% of those people to actually click buy, that's a nice bump in sales. And I would say you're a nice middle-sized kind of content creator. There are some content creators that reach literally 1 million people. I mean, you can go to the other extreme, right? The Kardashian. That's one crazy end of the spectrum. Mm-hmm. But she's making hundreds of thousands of dollars for just saying, "Hi, use this."
Right.
And so it's kind of the push up demand, where if that consumer sees that product, they're going to go to that retail and say, "I want to buy this. Where do I want to buy this thing that I just saw on TikTok or on Instagram? You local store, can you get this in for me?" Whether it's a new pattern, a new tool, a new something. So we find it very vital, the reach that this community has in getting demand for product and interest for product up.
Well, when you think about the business side of it, the people who present they paying you rent for the booth, right? And then the people who come there to buy, they come to make business. So it makes sense for people who present to get that booth. Where do you see the role of content creators and like influencers? Like, why were they even considered to be part of that?
Well, and it's something that we differ from previous events and other industry events. When you look at our tagline, like we have a few different taglines, right? One of our tagline is, if you make a living in crafts, we want you to think about our show as a platform for you to use. It's where creativity meets business is another kind of tagline that you'll see on our website and some of the language. It's because you're this specific piece, the content creator, is part of the ecosystem of business. If a manufacturer has a new knitting needle, right, whatever, maybe you have a new patent, there's a new item, and it's a new knitting needle, how can they tell the masses to check out my new knitting needle? They can open up a Facebook page, they can go on Instagram and doing it. That'll get them so far. They can buy ads in print magazines, sure. But today's modern marketing, there's another line in that marketing mix of the content creator. The influencer is part of that marketing mix today, where if I'm a product company, you have to think, I spend money on trade shows, I'm going to spend money on Google ads, I'll spend money on content creator strategies, you're going to have to spend money on maybe direct mail. And yes, there's only a finite number of dollars that anyone has to put into marketing, and you have to divide it up. And then each of those entities will say, no offense, we do trade shows. I believe in trade shows, so spend your money on trade shows, right? Face-to-face marketing, if I'll always say, is number one, because that's what I do for a living. But yet, I don't have that same reach as a content creator. Hey, if I got 22,000 people to the show, we would all be dancing in the street. Like, that would be unbelievably amazing. We know we don't have, we're not going to get those types of numbers in the door, but yet I want to help those companies still have success. So, but I can extend through you to your reach and almost like, in a sense, bring that virtual reach into the show to create that demand for the products.
And it's interesting to me because when I was talking to fellow YouTubers, people who are like in the knitters but have podcasts, and I was like, are you coming there? And there were like a bunch of YouTubers who live in Chicago, so it would be easy for them to come. And they would be like, what's H&H? So how do you go about spreading the word about H&H?
Well, thank you for having us on your podcast. So all of your listeners will now know about us. It is hard, right? Because the one difficult thing is, again, we're only 2 years old. So we've had 24 months to spend money on marketing. What we do for marketing is we do direct mail. We do for direct mail. And again, we can only direct mail to the businesses that we can find. There's lists out there that you can acquire that show you brick and mortar locations for physical retail establishments. You can buy those lists. You can mail those lists. Google ad search. Like everyone else, we all spend money on Google, right? It's where you got to be. We spend money on Instagram. We did paid boosts on Instagram. We have Facebook ads running. We did not put money into LinkedIn because we didn't think it was an audience to do it in, but we do have a LinkedIn community at least to try to connect. We spend money on geofencing activities. So if you attended certain competitive events around the country, we would serve up ads, general ads across programmatic advertising to you. We literally phone called. I want to say Nadine, was it a 5 or 6 state region that we called that we actually got through for the phone calls?
I don't remember.
Okay. So somewhere in that range, 5, 6 days, where we just kind of ran out of time calling every brick and mortar location we can find. And then we have our creator strategy. We worked with Prime Media this year where they're doing outreach to their known universe of content creators. To invite them to that reception, to show them a little hospitality, to introduce the event to them, to introduce products to them, connecting sponsors to those people. We put money into, I think where else we spend money? Some interviews. Scott Fortunoff had me on his video platform in speaking to individuals. Wendy up in Canada had me on her podcast series. Craft Industry Alliance had me on their podcast series. So it's just, part of it is just a matter of time and finding, and I would put the call out to all of you makers to say, tell a friend. Usually my sign up is always like, please go on Instagram. If you're not already following us, when you're done, the first thing you should do is follow us, because we have a very active voice. We post probably daily. Sometimes it's industry news. Sometimes it's very specific things about our event. We try to balance content and self-serving posts in there. Something new this year, and it was booked up, so it's kind of glad that not too many people knew about it. We created a content creator studio this year, where we had a 3-camera setup, 4 microphones, a full mixing board, a computer, where we had people doing live Twitch shows from the studio, people recording their podcasts in the studio, product demos in the studio. So as I say, it's a frustrating challenge because you do always meet people like, I didn't know about it. Okay, we can turn over so many thumbs, even down to every single exhibitor in the show is given special codes to invite their guests. Right. So you had 267 manufacturers who each had a free discount code to say, invite your networks. Now, do all of them do it? Some yes, some no.
This is how I got invited to the shows. Cowgirl Blues was asking me, are you coming to H&H? And again, I said, what's H&H? And then I looked it up and I was like, I would love to go. And she was like, here's the ticket. And then that's how I've learned about it. But it's what I also loved about the show is the amount of presentations and classes that were offered at the show. And I found that it was very interesting mix to see, because it's not like the yarn shows that we used to going and seeing. It's it was very industry specific, but there were a lot of classes for people who are not retailers. There were classes for retailers of how to deal with difficult customers, how to get your presence on the internet, all those things. But there were also a lot of interesting presentations about how to use Facebook ads, how to find work with influencers, or for influencers to find work with the industry people. So there was a lot of different classes and a lot of presentations that I found interesting. And some of them were very inspiring, when Crochet Boss was there, and he's an MMA fighter, and he was there talking about his crochet journey. It was very interesting mix of presentations. How was that created? How did you decide on what mixture of classes to provide?
So we offer a lot, and part of it, I always apologize to people because I look at our own website and I build it ourselves, we do it. And sometimes I get curious, how anyone can find anything, because there's just so much information. And we have so many things we want to say, and we try to organize it. At least it's logical in my head, but sometimes my world has a purple sky too some days. So there's a lot of stuff there, but the general idea of it, we do partner with the Craft Industry Alliance. They're our strategic partner for the event, and she really leads up our content program. So we kind of broke it into a few different segments. So we have a conference committee that she forms each late summer, early fall, and you can reach out to the alliance. It's a kind of an open call to anyone that wants to participate in our committees, and we gather industry feedback. And we kind of break it into, we have 3 keynote sessions that are free for everyone. We did a State of the Industry panel, the Crafty Chica on day 2, and the founder of Wubbles on day 3, kind of a nice founder story, a general crafter community content creator story, and then State of the Industry. Then we offered a paid business level set of classes where there is a fee for them. Members get a discount. But it's less about technique on how to knit, how to do a particular pattern, how to do something particular, but how to invest in your business, how to invest in yourself, because we really do believe, because many of the retailers in this space, the majority of the retail outlets in America are entrepreneurs, largely female entrepreneurs, right? Your local little needlepoint shop, your fabric stores, your yarn stores. There's 20,000 or 22,000 of them in America. You have mass market retailers, and that's a different end of things. And then how many different Etsy shop operators that are scaling up their business into production, educators that are teaching in high school and teaching a fashion design program. So we try to make sure people understand you need to invest in yourself so you can invest in your business. It takes a lot to come to the show, take the time away from your store, invest in the travel, invest in these things. So we want you to walk away with something that you can say, I can make a difference in my business tomorrow. And usually it's how to take better photography, how to make sure I train my employees so I'm not training them and then they leave and go somewhere else for another kind of business. how to just be an effective leader, because you are leaders, right? Most people, stores have more than one employee. Some are single shop operators, but that's probably the minority. Most of them that I've come across have a few employees because you're open some 7 days a week, 6 days a week, takes staff to do that. So we have that paid program. One of the feedback from year 1 to year 2 is they wanted more senior level. Like, hey, I've owned my business for 20 years. I need to take it to the next level. So we created our master class series that took place on the day before. And that was more long form, smaller class format with like groups of 10, some are 12 at max, with a Shopify expert. And she got all the list of everyone's store, went through your Shopify store and was like hands-on in your store, how to make it a better store. There was a class on email funneling, how to do email campaigns, and how to build that funnel of customers coming through from newsletters to actual click and purchases. Really, again, functional business needs. That's then balanced with on the exhibit floor now. So those are 2 paid things. Then we go back to our free category where we offered our what's called the main stage, which is where our friend the Crochet Boss was featured, but along with panel discussions, single operators about how to do drop shipping opportunities through maybe to your stores. Like if you want to sell furniture, many people don't want to stock furniture. It's bulky, it's expensive, but why not have a catalog and drop ship it right to your customer's doorstep? And you make your few cents for just handling the sale, or a few dollars, right? Like it's obviously it's not cents. So and that ran every day. So we had those kinds of opportunities. We also launched this year something brand new called our learning lab, where we started to introduce hands-on demos where there were different creators showcasing products in the show or techniques and things that you can get at the show on how you might take it, but more importantly, how you may teach it in your store. So then you can show customers why they want to buy something, why you might want to bring something in new that's a little non-traditional, but a nice crossover craft. On top of all of that, we also then had programs like happy hours to, again, foster that networking, to meet someone, talk to someone, extend that relationship time. And then, still not done yet. I know I'm talking a long time here. There was also, we had meetup events. So working with our association partners, there were many of them, from TNNA to Creative Retailer Magazine to Melissa Leitman in a designer one, the Designer Collective. I apologize if I'm getting her group wrong. There must have been 10 or 15 of these different ones who are just topic experts or just topic gatherers of people who brought people together because they had a similar interest. There was Jill did one on inclusionary sizing, right? How to design for different sized people and why that's important, and how you might do something in your business with it. We had the cosplay artists. We had a whole cosplay display, but the cosplay artists did a meetup so you can meet the cosplay makers and what is it like selling to them and what are their needs and when they're shopping. And then on top of that, we also had book signings in different booths with authors being on site. Abby had artists in her booth. There was someone, she had a woman doing resin projects, where again, a different craft, but just showcasing something kind of fun. Because at the end of the day, you might be a yarn store, but you're still a crafter. And when you get on a plane, it might be difficult to bring your knitting needles on a plane. They might not really like those nice sharp implements. Though I did see an article recently about how to get your needles on a plane. Maybe there's ones that are a little better. Or like if I'm a quilter, if your little sewing machine really does not fit well on the pull down tray to be sewing on the plane. So if you're stuck on a plane for 3-4 hours and you're like, what do I want to do? Maybe it's those adult coloring books. Maybe it's a little paper origami thing. Maybe it's a wobbles thing, right? Like a little handmade crochet item. These people, we're all crafters, and we don't stop crafting just because I have to step away from what my main craft might be.
Well, that was one of my questions, because usually, like from my experience of going to the wool festivals, it's exclusively like yarn and yarn related products, right? Here, there was a lot of quilting, fabric, sewing mixed up with all the yarn and tools for knitting, crocheting, and so on and so forth. What was the idea behind that? Like, why did you decide to put it all together?
A little bit because that's what we do in German. Our German show is a mix. It is a handicraft or handcraft. H&H is Handarbeit and hobby, so handcrafts and hobbies. is where the foundation of the show is. So we kind of followed our big sister a little bit. There was a market need in the United States at the time when we launched our show. There was a certain gap in the spectrum of events taking place. So we kind of stepped in to fill the void that we saw in the market space. And for us, we think personally, the business of the future is much more integrated than apart. If you're a knitting store, right, at some point, you may also want a candle. You may want some hand creams. Maybe you want kind of a handmade good. Like we had someone, I apologize, I can't remember the company. They had made flowers. They had crochet flowers that they're selling just finished. Like you might think, why would a knitting store want a crocheted item that's already made? Because sometimes you're just looking for a gift and you just want to take a handmade good and bring it to a friend, and you want to, and maybe maybe the idea that your yarn shop could fill a little bit of that gift void if you're buying a gift for a crafter. Well, that might make a really nice gift for them, or a nice bag. And that crossing over of things like sewing thread and fabrics, like you can weave with fabrics, right? You can make interesting things on it. So it's the idea that a quilter never quilts 100% of the time, and a crocheter or a knitter doesn't do that 100% of the time. So what's in between? Food. Yep, that's another craft, right? Another art form. And then that's where we wanted to display what these items are. And then depending where you're located, a nice woman, her store actually is both. She's a fabric store and a knitting store. So maybe if you're a store in North Platte, Nebraska, just because I drove through there once and I love the name of the town, I don't know, maybe you are selling both because there aren't many shopping options for individuals. You have maybe some mass market retailers, and you're the unique general store for crafting maybe. So that's why we kind of stick with if you make your living in crafts, we want you to think of this event as a place to explore and to learn and to maybe grow how you make your living.
Nadine, I want to ask you a question. Well,
Yes.
One is, could you tell us about your role in the preparation for the show? And two, is it easy to work with Darrin?
It is easy to work with Darrin. I've known Darrin a really long time. We worked together years and years ago on trade show, different company a long time ago. And we're like-minded. We work the same way. We have the same instincts on trade shows. So when we had a conversation a few months ago when I wasn't working and he offered me a position, he caught me at a weak moment and I said yes. So I came onto the team. I come from the craft industry. I was not as well versed in soft craft as I now am. So it was a very steep and quick learning curve. The team welcomed me with open arms and I was off to the races. So yeah, it's been a pleasure to work with him. He's been very helpful, very understanding. He speaks quickly like I do as a New Yorker, so we get along really well as far as that goes. He speaks a lot, so do I. That works out really well. So yeah, he's been great to work with. He's a very supportive team member. So that's been great. As far as my role, I'm on the sales team, and I took on a number of additional roles, working with media partners, working on the influencer party. So the influencer, content creator, designer, author party. It had a long name, obviously, because everyone was included in that. And it was fun to work on. I'd never worked on that side of the business before. I'd always been on the sales side. So working with the crochet boss and working with that influencer community was super fun, and getting to meet so many people in person that I was speaking to or working with via emails was just a joy, and being able to watch everyone network. And then, it was an event that was called for 3:30 to 5. And at 6:00 p.m., people were still going strong. I had to leave. The rest of our team had to leave, and we were able to leave some people there, but the room was broken down around them. People were still chatting. And ultimately we had to kick some people out, but they were still networking. It was really lovely to see the designers and the content creators, everyone just learning from each other and sharing best practices and just reconnecting. Trade shows in a lot of ways become, sort of reunions in ways of, I haven't seen you in a while. I haven't seen you in a year, or I haven't seen you in a couple of years. So to be able to connect, or people that haven't seen each other except on screens, be able to be in person and share stories or share projects. This is really a see, touch, and compare industry, and everyone walks around with a bag full of, things that they've made. So it was really fun to be able to witness that again. I hadn't seen that for a while. I was out of the business for a bit. So that was really fun to be part of. And trade shows they're in my blood. So being part of a trade show was always fun.
I also loved the whole happy hour there, not just because it was such a happy hour, but because it really sort of brought the community together, and like people were standing with that glass of wine, but like conversations were made in this relaxed sort of chatty atmosphere. I was sitting with the owner of the Knitting Fever, and suddenly he told me all his story, like over the glass of wine. And before I was trying to convince him to be on my channel, and he was like, "Oh, I don't do that." But we had, I didn't care. I just wanted to know his story, and it was shared over that glass of wine. So that was like beautiful to me, that it wasn't just like strictly business. It wasn't just about making deals. There was definitely this like relaxed atmosphere, chatting atmosphere, like getting to know each other. How was your experience during the show? Because like you worked so hard preparing for the show and doing all these check marks that like I have to remember this and this and that, and like we have to make sure that everything works. When the show finally starts, how do you feel?
So I was there for a short period of time. I wasn't there for the whole time, but for me, it's complete and utter. You would never see it, but it's mania inside. You never see it because we're show managers, but it's mania until 20 minutes after the show opens, because everything has to get done. It's like, with Super Bowl, kickoff is happening no matter what. The show happens no matter what. So it's mania until the minute the show opens, and then you're praying that everyone has their badges, everyone is scanned, everyone gets in the door, and then everyone gets in, and then you can take a minute and breathe. And then for me, for the first 2 hours, you let everyone do their thing. You don't talk to exhibitors unless there's a problem. You let everyone do their thing, and you sort of watch. I call it's like trade show magic. You watch everyone just do their thing. Exhibitors are chatting. They're having conversations. Attendees are so happy to be there. Exhibitors are finally being able to have conversations. They've worked months for this. We've worked a year for this, and we're able to watch all these magical things happen that we planned for and hoped for, and it's happening, and it's so exciting that all of these things are coming together with, like we set all these dominoes in place, and they're falling in just the right manner. The classes are happening, and the keynote happened, and the all these sessions, and the exhibitors, and all the displays are up, and they're beautiful, and everything is sparkly, and it's wonderful to watch. And then, you make sure that, oh, by the way, I have a meeting and I have to talk to this guy. So all the business part of it kicks in as well. But for that first, hour or two, to watch it is just, you just kind of revel in the fact that, we're sort of a small group, and all these things happened at all the right times is just really fun to watch happen. And then again, the business kicks in, but it's fun to watch it. And you even see the exhibitors start having fun. An hour ago, they were really tense because they weren't sure, and their shipments didn't get here till late, and someone's flight was delayed, and they didn't have their badges or whatever it was, and everything just sort of works out. So that's the trade show magic that I've always been a fan of. But you get to really enjoy all the work that you put into it. You really get to enjoy it. It's really special.
The best sound in the world, whether my background, I used to work like in the Olympics and World Cup soccer, like when you're standing in a stadium and you don't talk and you just listen, and your radio's not going off, your phone's not buzzing, and you just listen and you hear the event. Whether there's the trade show floor gets a buzz, and you hear the volume of noise that starts happening because 2,000 people are all talking at the same time. You hear maybe a booth that has some music going on in it. You hear some laughter in the corner. You hear a scream. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe you're here. Those kinds of things, like just the sound of the event, that's what that pent-up success point is. And yeah, it's a chance as the show director, like for me, it's like I even try to move further in the back because like my name is on lots of things, right? My name is like on every email that goes out. People know my name. My face is on lots of things. But it's nice. It's important to me that it's the time for the team also to have their chance to like shine. They all, They like, people are like, oh my God, like, aren't you so proud? I'm like, it's not because of me, it's because of them. This is only possible because of the team that we have here at Cologne Mesa, that this even happens because every one of us each lift mountains every day to make it possible. So watching them have that chance to just be like, we did it. Like, oh my God, I hit my sales goal. Like, we all have different things that we work towards, right? And seeing happy clients, and yeah, there'll be someone who's not happy. It's just, it is. And like, I think, as I said before, we went on the recording, like, if we hit 100%, that means we didn't try hard enough. We didn't push something far enough. We didn't try something new enough. We didn't experiment enough. We're going to fail on some things, but as long as we don't fail twice on the same thing, then we're good. Because and we have a very long product development cycle where if you're a retail owner, I can try a weekend sale, right? I can move something next to the cash register and see, did it work this weekend? Yeah, bad idea. Move it, try something new. We only get once every 12 months,
right,
to say, I have the stage here, wasn't so busy. What if I move the stage here? We can move it and try it, but I got to wait 12 months to see if it works. And if it was a bad idea, darn, now I got to wait another 12 months to try it again. And so it's very frustrating as an organizer to pull that off, that kind of iteration, and to stay relevant and to make sure we have the development and what we're doing. And that's why we really do, like, we have committees. I encourage anyone that listens to this, please reach out to us, like, whether it's on Instagram. Nadine and I are pretty much the two that respond. If you ever didn't get a response, please ping us again, because like, we do respond to every DM that comes in. We have a live chat on our system. It's not a bot. It's not some AI program doing something. It's not some offsite place responding. It is 99% of the time me, Nadine, Leslie, and Jessica. Right? It's one of the four of us more than likely responding to that message. You will reach us directly. And with Abby, we have these committees. Nadine's been in the process of putting together a committee of content creators and influencers to think about, maybe is there education that's specific to that audience, that maybe we can launch some new things there. We have an exhibitor committee. We have a DE&I committee. We had a marketing committee. We just truly believe that this is an event that we want to make an event for the industry, with the industry, not just what we have in our own little heads. Like, yes, we have our own ideas because we're creative people ourselves, but we need the industry's sounding to tell us, yes, no, try this.
Was there a lot of feedback coming after the show to you about like the ways to improve or suggestions, or like what went brilliantly and what didn't? Did you get a lot of that?
You always get some, but I always want more. This is an area that I think that we can always take more feedback. We can always hear from more voices, unrepresented voices, like even parts of like if there's product categories out there, when you look at the show saying, oh, we don't have a show, we want a show, where can we go? Again, we just want to hear from everyone. The reality is, like, you asked 2,000 people, how many of them responded? Maybe 10 to 20%, like probably like every business, like how many times you actually hear something. The hardest part is, like, do you get when you're a restaurant business, right? Even a retail store, you don't hear from the positive people, because positive people, the only reason why you know they're positive because they keep coming back and buying, right? You hear from the negative people, and unfortunately the negative people will then tell 5 more people and create that kind of bad spread. So there are people out there that didn't like or don't like what we do in certain areas. I'm sorry. We will try not to repeat those areas, but we'll say the criticisms or the cons against what we're doing are actually more beneficial. There were things like they would like to see more vendors of a certain category type, which is extremely helpful. Like, one of them is like kind of buttons and beads.
Right.
So we're being requested. They want to see more beads and buttons. We want to see more beads and buttons. It's not, trust me, we want to sell more booths. That's how we make our money. That's how we produce our event. But yet when we have customers retail say, I want to shop for this, then I can take that information and say, hey, supplier, there's people here that want to meet you. Don't you think you want to come together and actually meet them? And like doing this on Zoom, hey, it's wonderful. We have the technology to do this, but there's something about a face-to-face interview. There's something about watching old school Diane Sawyer, right? Those kinds of things. Like when you watch it on stage and a talk show on stage, it's just a different medium and a different format than the digital world. And showing people my widget, if this was my widget, if you can see it there, right? I could say, oh, it's a glossy button, it's this button, it's a that button, but you want to put it in your hand.
Right.
And if I can give you a cup of coffee with it, even better, because now we're going to sit and hang out for a while and become even friends.
Did you make any new friends at the show?
Always. Always. It's funny. My kids laugh at me because I tell them I'm becoming an influencer myself. And people do, like, it's funny enough because, like, I'm standing there with my colleague from Cologne, and there are people who came out of their way to say, you're Darrin, you're the guy that sends me emails. Can I take a photo with you? Or, like, just wanted to say thank you for, like, a reminder email we sent out, or things that we did. Or if you saw our ribbon cutting, we had these very large scissors. People are like, can I take a picture with the scissors? It's fun. It's nice to be known. But I'm also totally good with being a background person. To me, I live on the shoulders. If my customers are happy, then I'm happy. I'm as happy as my customers are.
Nadine, did you have any celebrity moments at the show?
I didn't have celebrity moments. Well, I got to meet the crochet boss, and I'm very proud. I was on Instagram looking for people to invite individually, and I found him on Instagram. I invited him to come to attend, and I wanted to have a conversation with him. And through the course of conversation, and I was in touch with Darrin, I invited him to come to the show and be a speaker, and that's how it all sort of came together. And he's a complete delight. He was a joy to work with. He was a joy to have at the event. He was over the moon to be there. He was so excited. He was actually, they planned to come to the show for 2 days, and then they're going somewhere else for the third day. He was disappointed he wasn't at the show for 3 days. He's already planning to come for 3 days for next year, so he's already booked. So things like that are just joyful. And we had London Kay, who did that crocheted big heart that was at the entrance unit. She put it together. She came in. She had never been to a show like this before. She walked the show. She was over the moon. So things like that. And I worked with London before, so I was thrilled that she would be there. But walking through the show, again, I'd been out of the industry for a bit, but reconnecting with people I hadn't seen for a while. I was sitting with some former exhibitors I worked with, and I turned around to help someone move a chair and a table, and I turned around. I was chatting, unbeknownst to me, I was moving the table and chairs for 2 former exhibitors I hadn't seen in, I don't know, one in probably 12 years and one in like 10 years that I did. And I knew one was there, one I didn't even know would be there. So those were like the happy accidents. So I'm not sure celebrity sightings, but reconnectings. And it was such fun. So that's the part of trade shows that I find really joyful. And it's a welcoming, warm industry. It really is. It's that everybody wants to help and educate and share. So, and you know what Darrin said is true. There's a certain vibe about trade shows. This energy that happens when everyone is doing their thing, and that happened a lot. And it really that's the part that's just exciting for me across the board.
Well, my only complaint for the show was that I probably got 4 to 5 hours of sleep every night. It never, like, it just never stopped. You know, there were like so many people. We were out.
Happens.
You know, it was like the best time. So I felt like I'm back in the like college dorm, you know, where a party never ends and new people come and you meet more and more people and like new connections being made. So for me, it was like an absolute blast. I was extremely sleep deprived because the day was starting like at 7 a.m. already with like meeting plans, who you're going to meet next and where you're going to do the interview and like what presentations you want to attend and what classes you want to listen to. But it was like an absolute like the sense of belonging and sense of a party and sense of like unlimited opportunities.
And yeah, and I think to some of the celebrity piece, like what we'll say a hidden aspect that we're trying to do for the industry is that you may not, you think you know your customer, but you may not know your customer, right? You have your prototypical customer that you think walks into your store, but then when you meet someone like Maurice Green, for those that don't know him, please do look him up. He is 6'6", 7, 320 pounds, 300, somewhere in that range. He's a very large human being. Yes, and his profession is a mixed martial arts, so he's a very muscular gentleman. But when you look at him, he would not be the persona character that you say is your customer. But he is your customer, right? And and he likes to teach inner city kids about using meditation and meditate. Knitting is meditating and how it gets them ready for bouts. He's really teaching this philosophy of why these crafts are good, but like that might not be what you think is your persona customer. Or the cosplay artist, right? We typically think of cosplay artists sometimes as black eyeliner, black makeup, platform shoes, dark clothing, goth kind of style, or maybe you see something on TV of some comic book convention and crazy outfits. But then again, we had a Wonder Woman outfit that was crocheted. That was kind of mind blowing to me to think that this went into this outfit, or the Mandalorian costume that is using fabrics. And the machines that the woman used for the oh my god, the Hocus Pocus outfit, right? The amount of hours she put in, the quality thread, the quality fabric, the professional level machines that she's using to make this artwork, and she wears it. So it's functional artwork, right? They wear them to parties, they wear them to events. She happens to be a professional costume maker for some of the theater and for movie things that come through Chicago. She's also a professor in town, that artist. But those are also your customer. And that's how, if you want to grow your store to the next 20 years into the future, these are your customers to think, besides, yes, your typical prototypical one. Or if you go on TikTok, look at how many people are doing crocheting now and knitting or making crafts. They're not old people, they're young. So where are they buying product? Where are they learning about their product? And that's what I think is an underlying message that we're trying to do, is like, how do we move your business forward for the next 20 years in that kind of celebrity siding to it? And yes, and London K is like a whole nother end of the spectrum, right? You put her next to Maurice and it's kind of like this, right? She's relatively short, he's very tall. Like, it's just such a juxtaposition physically to see in that space, but yet they're part of the same industry. And her artwork that she had was the fusing of fabric and yarn.
Right.
Because there was woven fabric into it. There was applied fabric onto her piece. So it was another one of these ways to demonstrate how these materials can be used to create something that you want to offer, typically as a present or to decorate your own homes, or that you're maybe selling at a craft fair, right? Like maybe you're making items and selling them somewhere else. So I think it's really trying to demonstrate all of that in a funnel of 3.5 days of just intense hospitality and opportunities. And to the part you're saying, like the fun part of not sleeping, it's the joy of where we're physically located. Rosemont, Illinois. For us, people have asked, can you move it here, move the event there? Right now, our goal is to keep the event there for a number of reasons. One, there's probably not a place in the planet that I could think of that doesn't have direct flights, whether you're coming from Shanghai, Beijing, Singapore, Auckland, New Zealand, Frankfurt, Des Moines, Iowa, Erie, Pennsylvania, New York City, San Francisco, right? Like, you keep going down the list, they all come to Chicago, direct flights. Right. You're not jetting, at least domestically, right? It's halfway in the middle. If you're coming down from Canada, it's reasonable for most of the major cities down from Canada. You're not taking a whole day going east from west. Rosemont, we call it Chicago, yes, because out-of-towners don't understand what Rosemont is or where it is. But yet, it's not city rates in hotels. Like, we have hotel rooms that are $159, right? That are walking distance to the convention center with free shuttle buses. If you need, there's even lower price points a little further down the road if you have access to a car. If you're driving in the region, plenty of parking. It's a drivable Midwest destination to get to. So that's easy. And now they have their new entertainment park. So to the part of not sleeping, you have concerts in the park, you have bowling alleys, comedy clubs, many choices of restaurants, and even a movie if you just want to go for quiet time. And then the hotels themselves, because there aren't many hotels, you walk into the lobby and somebody will be sitting there with a beverage and knitting or doing something. Like 11 o'clock at night, they'll be there. You could find your people and you can hang out.
Oh,
and it's a 20-minute cab ride from the airport to the hotel, and 20-minute cab ride from the convention center to the airport. It's easy peasy.
Yes.
No, it was super, super convenient. And I agree. Like, the first person I met walking into the show was Bridget from Cowgirl Blues, and she was a guest of my channel. And like, I walked into the restaurant and she was the first person I saw, and I volunteered my service to help her set up her booth. So it was like definitely the case. Well, you want to hear something that you both of you, Maurice and London and Bridget, have in common?
Sure.
We're all guests of Fiber Chats. I just
Very nice.
and I feel like this is like representative, because if all these people could be on my channel and we have a lot in common, then they do belong to the same trade show for sure. You know, they all have the same. And there is so many fiber artists that I know that use different mediums to express their art. So like I totally agree that it was a great idea to combine all of that.
And we're looking forward to even taking it to the next level. We only have 10 months this time. We don't have a full 12 backed because we do have new
Right.
dates. So next year, if you're planning to come, or we ask everyone to please plan to come if you can, the new dates are May 1, 2, 3. So it's the very first week in May, where we will have some pre-conference on the night before, April 30th. Yeah, I think it's only 30 days in April. So that you can kind of preset that timing. It is a totally new time of the year for the industry. Many of it, particularly in the yarn side, we're used to a traditional event in June. Now we're shoving forward based on exhibitor customer feedback is what drove this, where different parts of the industry for the sewing machine sector, the earlier time frame makes it easier for them because many of them have corporate events in the June, July into August is when a lot of this corporate sewing machine events. Some of the fabric companies, the beginning of May is when they actually introduce their new lines. So it fits product introduction cycles for the fabric industry. Our yarn industry said they release product in Cologne for their global introduction, and the June event is too late. Their sales reps have already visited the stores. The orders have already been written by the time you get to the end of June. So by coming earlier, it makes it product introductions a little easier because they'll come out in Cologne. 4.5 weeks later, you're now introducing it to the North American market per se, and maybe Latin American market. So if you just take the whole hemisphere as an area of focus, or if you didn't get the Cologne, you can now get the second taste of it here, and then they can go out in their sales cycle. So we're kind of encouraged with this experiment to see how it works. And again, we're experimenting, right? We tried 2 times at one time of the year. We're going to move it up a little bit and see how the industry reacts. We think it's going to be positive. All the indications say it should be positive, but we'll find out in 10 months. And then we'll make new iterations from there as we learn together what's the right timing. And since we have different audiences, if you're an indie hand dyer, right, and you're in our startup pavilions or kind of in the newer end of the business, you have different go-to-market needs and different market timing. So for the sake of a pun, threading the needle is not always the easiest thing on earth, right? Sometimes I need my bifocal so I just can't see it anymore. Too hard, too old.
Well, let me ask you about the next year, because I've been telling all my friends that they have to come to H&H, and what a wonderful time I had there. And people would ask me, so like, for whom is this show? Who did you think, who is your ideal customer for next year? Like, who would you want to see at that show?
To the statement I said earlier, like the fundamental thing, if you make your living in crafts, we want you to consider taking the time to come. And that's the fundamental entry point, right? Like, because we're not a consumer event. We're not open to the public. It's not meant for people that just enjoy crafts as a hobby. There are other events for those individuals. Is that if your fundamental thing is, I make my living in this space, then you should say yes. So like, as I say, it's a big wide net that we're trying to cast. So you can say a teacher, right? People that teach, whether you're in an elementary school, in middle school or high school. I'm very fortunate in the neighborhood that I live in. Our elementary school is an after-school weaving club. The middle school has sewing and like what I call home ec. I think it's now called, I don't even know what the heck they call it. I know it's not home ec anymore, but home ec, right? Like they have sewing class. My daughter made pillows this year and this past year in the 6th grade. Our high school has a whole fashion design program. She's got some of the most state-of-the-art equipment I've seen anywhere at that school, let alone colleges. All of those teachers, because they buy equipment, they're influencing the next makers that are coming. I've met people who said, I'm opening up a store in the fall. Can I come to the show? Yes. She bought her whole starting inventory at the show. So I don't want to neglect her. An Etsy maker is a fine line, right? Some people are on Etsy and it's a hobby, right? I make 1 thing, 2 things. Like it's not really a serious business. It's kind of like a few extra bucks so I can go out. Sure. Maybe not so serious. But where does it teeter to? I'm making $100 a month to $1,000 a month to $1,000 a week to $1,000 a day. Those stores are on Etsy. So somewhere in that chain, we want to make sure they know how to buy those products. Then you can get into content creators, influencers, whatever title you like. You're the modern form of media in this space, right? You're the ones talking about and promoting products. You're looking for brand deals, and those brands are looking for people like you. If you ask an exhibitor or a manufacturer, what's one of their pain points? They don't know how to meet content creators. You ask a content creator, what's a pain point? I don't know how to meet brands. So that's where we're trying to bridge that gap. And then you get e-commerce stores, right? Many brick and mortar stores, particularly during the pandemic, you closed up, particularly craft categories, right? To find a general craft store is very kind of difficult. But now it's really easy to set up a unique button store or a unique beading store or a unique little micro stores for interesting markets that you want to service. That e-commerce category absolutely has a point here. There's mass market, right, on e-commerce as well. We love them too. The brick and mortar retailers, the death of brick and mortar is overly exaggerated, right? My daughter goes to the mall. The mall is busy. People are shopping at the mall here, right? The people still like the curated environment because I can search all day long online, but I can only search for what I know. I can't discover as easily when the shop curator says these colors go together, or particularly like in clothing, right? I'm going to call myself male inept. I need the mannequin that shows the pants, the belt, the shoes, the socks, and everything, right? And I can say, I want that. Just put it in a bag. Let's go. Make it my size. Because I need the curated shopping experience. Not that I don't want to buy. I just need help. And your local yarn store, what do? They help you buy product. They listen to what your project is. What do you want to make? They advise on different, you're doing a electric project. Oh, maybe you don't want to buy this. You need to buy that. And so there's still, from our latest research, over 20,000 of them in America. I would love if every one of those stores sent one person to the show next year, please. I want one person from every brick and mortar retail store in America come to H&H next year, please.
And I think you also touched on a very important point, because I found that coming to the show, I didn't necessarily know what to expect, but I got so much information, things that I didn't even know I was looking for. I learned about new products coming. I learned about new tools. I learned about how people use what I use in different ways. So to me, it was eye-opening and inspiring on a lot of levels. And I think people who come to that show, they can't help but to have the same experience.
Yeah, and there's two other categories I actually left out in that whole long statement there, distributors, right? Distributors have salespeople who are trying to sell product, but the distributors need to source product themselves. They should be part of it, because one of the categories of where feedback that we did receive was suppliers are looking to meet more distributors. They're looking at how to get into those businesses. We know them, Checkers, Notions, E. Shank, Brewer. They all had booths at the show selling product, but the other exhibitors are trying to sell into there because that's who distributes quite a bit of the product in America. Or North America, even globally, right? There's even distributors. So I think that's super important to them. International companies are coming for the first time because America's a big market, and they're looking to meet reps. They're looking to meet distributors, right? There was a nice Spanish company, right? They're trying to find reps in America who could take their product out and show it around. So that's, the rep is important to the business. Those distributors are important to the business. Non-exhibiting manufacturers. Why do I want them there? Can they sell them now? Probably. But then again, it's not the same as if you have a booth to show your product. So we want you to be here as part of business, because if you come and see it, you're going to realize, I should have been in it. Or we have private meeting rooms for certain businesses, quite a bit of companies from Turkey and Italy. They're not necessarily there to sell the retail attendee. They're there to sell the exhibitor attendee because they're the supply side. It's another part that makes H&H unique, is that we're putting together the complete supply chain in that order process. So all the way from maybe an original mill, all the way through to what you might want on your store. One of our goals this next year is to develop more of the ancillary items you need for your store. Accounting, stamps, boxes, tissue paper, shopping bags, all the other things that you still have to source as a retail operator, whether you're brick and mortar retail, e-commerce retail, you got to put it in a box, you got to put it in a bag, and you got to get it in their hands. and the IRS wants their money. So you better keep track of it. Or the European Tax Authority wants their money. Wherever you have to give your money back to, you better keep track of it well, right? So those services we want to grow so we can make it a little easier for the business to find all of their business needs. Websites, right? But everyone, you can't be a business without a website. If you need a domain, you need email, all these things.
Well, I just hope, like, I have one request. I know that I'm not ruling the show, but please keep the taco truck because that was amazing.
Yes, I have a good friend of mine who does work for a company. I've known him since the second grade, and he works as a rep for one of the vendors. He lives in Chicago. Our daughters even go to sleepaway camp together, and he stopped me one day. He's like, Darrin, he goes, I have to say, that was some awesome food. It's like, normally, like, people complain about many things at a trade show. Food will be always the top of the list that people complain about. And he was like, Darrin, the food was awesome. Like,
Right.
oh my God. Like, I don't understand. I don't know what to do with this information because that is not something you hear as an event organizer. It's usually, we want more water, we want more places to sit, and the food wasn't great. And the fact
that it was too hot or it was too cold. It's always that stuff.
I had
he led with the food was
the best of time and the food was amazing. So putting this event together, and I cannot wait to see what's happening next year. I'm definitely coming. I'm so happy that I got to talk to you guys and get a little glimpse behind the scenes and to see what goes into the organization of this beautiful event. So thank you for being my guest today.
Thank you for giving this platform to speak to people, and just our goal is just to, if we talk more,
Yes.
Nadine and I can do, but just the more we talk,
Really.
the more people can learn, the more people we can just maybe open their minds to ask the question. And please, as I said earlier, if you don't follow us, please follow us. Do it now. And then if you want a voice, we're here to listen. Join a committee, write us directly. Please engage with us because we want to make this something for you.
Thank you. And
Yeah,
I'm going
you can find us on the website, ask the questions.
I'm going to put the information on how they can find you in the description of this video, so it's going to be easier for people to discover and learn more about H&H.
I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Perfect.
Thank you.